When you hear your biography like that, you sound a whole lot more impressive than you really are. Real quickly, you'll be able to tell I'm not from what they call the region here, apparently. So I'm a little further south. So, but that's me. That's my smiling face in uniform. So, just a little bit. I do actually, all jokes aside, I do have. If you'll indulge me for just a minute, I do have a little bit of connection to Lake County. Both professionally here, obviously today, but back when I first came on, we had a guy by the name of Governor Evan Bayh. Some of you in the audience might remember when he was governor. Some of you weren't probably born yet. But when he was governor, he had sent the state police to the Lake County area, specifically Gary, for those of you that might remember. And so almost 31 years ago now, I was one of those troopers that was sent up here to try to help combat crime in the Gary area. So coming from the cornfields of Rush County to the urban areas of Gary, Indiana was quite an eye-opening experience for a young 22-year-old Thundercat state trooper, I can tell you. But one of the things that I realized when I was there is that I needed good backup. And at the time I had met what is now my wife, and having that experience up here gave me an opportunity to realize that I needed somebody important like her to help me get through this type of work. And so I would like to give a nod to my beautiful bride of over 27 years, my wife, Carla. She's here with me today. So we made the short drive up here. We live southeast of Indianapolis, so she's coming with me today to do this. So I appreciate you taking the time, and I'd like to thank the Stop the Traffic organization for the invitation here today. So I do like to walk and talk. Apparently they don't have a clicker, so that's going to limit me a little bit here. But you know, why are we here today? So when Mr. Reynolds had asked me, oh, thank you. So when Mr. Reynolds had contacted me, so I'm a walker talker, okay, so just bear with me here. He asked me to do a number of things, so it's a little bit unconventional, some of the things I want to talk about. But just to give a little bit of background, as the biography stated, I went to the Texas State Highway Patrol Academy in the fall of 2022 there in Austin, Texas. And the Texas State Highway Patrol is the tip of the spear on human trafficking. And so our organization, Indiana State Police, subscribes to what's called the Interdiction for the Protection of Children. So basically it's your children, human trafficking and so forth, and the exploitation. So I went down there and got trained up on that. And so now I teach at our State Police Academy, as well as the Indiana Law Enforcement Academy. As a matter of fact, I'm teaching next Tuesday human trafficking. So it's part of the curriculum that we teach to get out to our law enforcement partners around the state. But he asked me to talk about a number of things. He wanted me to talk about some missing persons here in Lake County, not specific cases, but just some general information. He also wanted me to talk about the impact of vacant properties up here in the area. Of course, we're here today for some human trafficking. And the last thing that I want to talk about, and I will be honest with you, it's not an area of expertise for me by any stretch of the imagination. My wife will tell you I struggle mightily with technology and so forth. But we're going to talk about cyber stalking and some internet safety, and it's some information that we got from our partners with the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. Please. So let's get into it. So the missing persons here in Lake County specifically. So as we all know, Indiana is the crossroads of America, right? So in Indiana, we have approximately 7 million residents in our great state. 1,140 of those are missing here in the state of Indiana, and 185 have been missing for 10 years or more. So unfortunately, what that tells you is that those are likely unsolved death investigations or something to that effect that have occurred. But by contrast, here in the region area of the state, we have approximately 503,000 residents here in Lake County alone, so it's a pretty good sized population base. There are 131 reported missing persons here in Lake County as of 2025, but the good news is we transitioned, there were 185 reported missing persons in Lake County in 2020, so I'll consider that some good improvement. Go on to the next one, please. So how do those kinds of things impact us here with vacant properties and so forth? And it certainly isn't a referendum on Gary by any stretch of the imagination, but it was something that Mr. Reynolds asked me to talk about here today. And I will be honest with you, some of the information is rather elusive to get a hold of, but this is what I was able to uncover. So for those of you that are from this area, I don't need to tell you that Gary was a powerhouse economic engine in this area for a number of years. So back in 1960, there was more than 178,000 residents in that city alone. And it was the 70th largest city in the United States. By contrast, you fast forward to 2025, and there are just a little over 66,000 residents in that city. They are now dropped down to the 566th largest city in the United States. So that's a massive decline in population base, which as a result, we've got an urban decline. And how that is important is if you look at the abandoned home rate is 31.41% in that geographic part of the county here. That's the highest in the United States. So that's not good, right? Conversely, the nationwide average is about 1.3%. And there are somewhere, again, it's a bit of a moving goalpost, there's between 10 and 13,000 vacant properties in the city of Gary alone. So that's a massive amount of properties, a daunting task. And I know that they're doing some things to try to make that, improve that area, but it takes a lot of time and a lot of money for sure. So how does that affect us? Can you go to the next slide, please? So vacant properties have a cascading effect. So they become huge safety risks to the community for a lot of different reasons. First and foremost, I think we can all agree they detract from our communities, right? But first, the other thing is, once that distraction starts, then it also stifles other development and certainly investment. So if you've got people that want to do certain things, it may not be attractive to them to make the investment in that community. And so it just becomes a circular economy to the extent of lack of any development and so forth going on. But back up, whoops, back the other way. Well, you're going the wrong way. You're fast. They don't want to hear that again. Keep going. One more. All right, back. There we go. Stop. Okay. So why is that important for us? Well, because those properties become a haven for criminal activity such as narcotics, homicides, prostitution, missing persons, and things like that. Just like the previous speaker, I can guarantee he would echo those same sentiments, and I can guarantee you the things that I've just mentioned here also apply to like the Chicagoland area, right? So yeah, but also as I say, this is a way that the trafficking can start. Go ahead, please. So we'll go to the next slide. If you can hit play for that for me. This is a public service announcement that I feel is pretty impactful and kind of sends a message. Oops. Should play. If it won't, that's okay. If it doesn't, that's okay. It may not, since I have to put it on the slide. It may not do. If it was embedded, but that's okay. That's okay. We'll skip, sorry about that, there was a little technical difficulty. We'll skip over to the next slide. So, I know you guys know a lot about these things, but this is coming from a law enforcement perspective. So, as you know, there's two different kinds of trafficking, essentially, that are most common. Your sex trafficking and your labor trafficking. Many of them will go interconnected. But in a nutshell, it's the recruitment, harboring, transportation, provision, obtaining, patronizing, or soliciting of a person for the purpose of a commercial sex act in which the commercial sex act was induced by force, fraud, or coercion. And those are very critical terms, and we'll get into more of that here in just a minute, in which a person induced to perform such an act is under the age of 18 years of age. Labor trafficking, conversely, is recruiting, harboring, transportation, provision, or obtaining of a person for labor or services through the use of force, fraud, or coercion, same sentence there again, for the purpose of subjection to involuntary servitude, peonage, debt bondage, or slavery. So as the previous speaker talked about, it's modern day slavery. Next slide, please. So to do that, we look at this from an AMP model, the action, means, and purpose. So for example, in the action portion of it, you have the recruitment, the harboring, the transportation, the providing, the obtaining, the patronizing, or the solicitation. And then the means by which they get these victims to do this is through force, fraud, or coercion. And then the ultimate end product is the labor or services or the commercial sexual contact. Go ahead, next slide, please. So how do they get to that means? Again, as I indicated, just as the statutes talk about in the definitions, they apply here in Indiana, it's through force, fraud, or coercion. So in the force mechanism, There'll be beating and slapping, there may be burning, sexual assaults. As the previous speaker talked about, rape, gang rapes, things like that. That's basically what's going on day to day with these victims. It may be an initiation. They're confined, as he talked about. They couldn't leave the facility or location that they were at. Different torture practices. There's a term called pimp stick beating, and they will engage in those activities, maybe against the person that they want to send a message to, or to another person to send a message to them that this can happen to you. They'll do it through fraud, so they'll make false promises. So just like the previous speaker was talking about, they'll say the difference between smuggling and trafficking is smuggling is going across an international border, sovereign border. You voluntarily do that. The trafficking is where it's not voluntary. But what happens is if you picture yourself put in a situation just like at the southern border, if you are from a different country that you don't speak this language, you don't know the cultures, you don't know where you're at, all of a sudden the basic needs of food, shelter, and clothing become pretty darn important, right? So if you get across that border, then all of a sudden someone will say, well, I can help you out because they speak your language, they understand your culture, different things like that, and the next thing you know, they're being sex trafficked or they're being labor trafficked or a combination of both. So that deceitful enticement, they may withhold wages, do blackmail and extortion, they'll lie about working conditions, they'll tell them that things are going to get better, and once they pay off the debt, then they're free to go, but they prey on that desperation. And then lastly, the coercion portion of it. There's threats of serious harm, there's intimidation, humiliation. A lot of this can be psychological as well. There's a lot of psychological manipulation here. The emotional abuse, they control their daily activities. We see cases where they'll be asked permission to charge their phone. How many of you know you just have to ask permission to charge your phone, right? That doesn't happen. So controlling all those daily activities. Establishing quotas, they have to sleep with so many people or do so many hours at a job, things like that. And they create this culture and climate of fear. Next slide, please. So the different forms of commercial sex exploitation that we identify, we have familial, we have intimate partner, we have pimp, the survival style, and of course the organized crime. And if you'll go to the next slide, so you will ask yourself, who are traffickers? Well, what I would tell you is there's a common denominator here. 36% of the time, it's an immediate family member, okay? 27% of the time, it's a boyfriend or significant other. Now, I went to public school, and I'm not good at math, but I'll be honest with you, that right there, that's 63% of the time, that's somebody pretty known to them, right? It's someone that's important to them, a family member or a significant other. And then if you had the friends of family, that'll ratchet it up to about 76, 77% of the time. So it's not a situation where it's the white van in a parking lot in an alley going to grab you off the street like they see in the movies, right? That's the exception, not the rule I would offer to you, okay? So they start that grooming as the previous speaker talked about. Next slide, please. But one of the things that we want to talk about today is we all understand the trafficking and some of the challenges with it, but there may be a lot of reasons why these folks may not want to self-identify or leave the situation. And we'll hit on some of these. Knowing what I just discussed with you, if you have a family member or a significant other or a friend, so 70-some% of the time, you have a love or loyalty to that person, okay? Because again, they're providing needs for you. And the needs may be that you weren't being met at home either. So if you're a young person who's impressionable and things aren't necessarily going your way, someone will fill that void, okay? And they'll do it through fear, due to threats and violence. Again, we talked a little bit about this through the language barriers, and also many times, especially young people, they don't know what the laws are, right? I mean, even adults many times don't know what the laws are. I sometimes don't even know what the laws are, and I've been in the game for 30 years, right? So, I gotta look at the books. And they don't have options, and they don't know who they can trust, because many times the people that are perpetuating the crimes are people that you would think you could trust. They could be pastors, they could be teachers, right? How many times do we see these kinds of things? Law enforcement, all kinds of different scenarios. How many headlines do you see with those same scenarios, right? So, and they're manipulated to buy into the life with this false sense of security. Go ahead, please. So there's a lot of reasons why victims may not disclose, okay? They may feel ashamed. They may blame themselves for what's happened. They've made this choice, things like that. They're embarrassed. There may be a sense of guilt. Many times because they've been perpetuated this way, or maybe they've been arrested, they believe they're the criminals, right? And not necessarily victims. They may have engaged in criminal behavior, but it doesn't necessarily make them a criminal, if that makes sense to everybody, right? So, and they may not realize, honestly, that they're a victim of human trafficking, okay? Because of the way that they've been manipulated into this lifestyle and into these activities. And again, they fear law enforcement and the legal system because they may have experienced arrest, or again, maybe law enforcement has been involved in these kinds of things and they don't know who they can trust. There's a huge fear of retaliation. They may have engaged in other criminal activities and they just don't know who, if anyone, they can trust. That's the bottom line. So they're basically on an island by themselves. Next slide, please. So in this wheel, you have the two prongs. You have the sex trafficking and labor trafficking, and it all goes into the middle, and that's for your power and your control. That's what the bottom line is. Trafficking is about power and control, and I'm not going to go through all the things, but as you can see, there's a lot of things here that we talk about. The economic manipulation, physical abuse, emotional abuse, things like that. And I use that as a segue for the next portion of our instruction here that I'll talk about, and you'll see there's some common nuances to trafficking, and I think it's also a gateway into potential trafficking for some of our younger people and even adults. Go ahead, please. Good. So, what do your children do online? You may not really want to know the answer to that, to be quite honest with you. Okay? Next slide. They're doing all kinds of things. So they're doing their schoolwork. They're probably maybe doing videos. They're doing games. They're talking, things like that. There's all kinds of different things. And that's, you go, yeah. So you can't teach everything. And I would offer to you, as connected as we are, we're incredibly disconnected, right? You can be in a room with somebody and not even have a conversation now. How many of you texted your significant other, hey, can you get me a cup of coffee? Can you come upstairs? Can you change the laundry over? Things like that, right? We do that. Yeah, we do that in our house. Okay, and I'm a state public servant. We don't live in a mansion for God's sakes, you know. So, but anyhow, there's a lot of risks online, right? So there's all kinds of inappropriate content. You have online privacy issues, online enticement. We'll get into that here in a minute. Cyberbullying, sextortion, and sexting. Does anyone, show of hands, know what those are by chance? Okay, next slide, please. We're doing good on time. So, you want to talk to your young folks, and this applies really not just to young folks, but we can talk about it at any different stage here. Your younger children, you want to talk about etiquette, which what you should and shouldn't be doing online. There seems to be this disconnect that if it's on a keyboard or on a computer, manners don't matter, right? We see that all the time, even with a lot of adults, right? But looking at inappropriate contact, passwords, not trusting everyone you meet online, because how many of them say, well, this is my friend. Well, have you ever met this friend? No, I've never met this friend. Well, where are they at? Well, they're online, whatever you name the platform, right? And then as they get older, it starts to migrate into other things like cyberbullying, the sexting, the posting of personal or inappropriate information. And then, of course, the real scary part is when they start wanting to meet people offline, right? Next slide, please. So where do you start with that? You want to build a strong relationship foundation. You want to develop trust between you and your loved one. Be comfortable talking about the uncomfortable, right? No one wants to have that conversation with their parents or significant person in their life about super personal matters, but you really need to. That way it will help them with their critical thinking as well as their problem-solving skills, and it will develop resiliency for them as they continue moving through. And it will help with what they should and shouldn't be doing online. Next slide, please. So the inappropriate contact, there's a lot of it out there, right? You've got pornography. We've got excessive violence. We got hate speech. We got risky or illegal behaviors. And that's just the music we listen to, right? Think about that for just a minute. That didn't count on the other stuff. But what can you do? You can be a trusted person. You can listen without judgment or shame. You can help and take action and remain calm. Obviously, as parents or somebody that is important to you, you want to freak out when you hear bad things, right? But it's important for you to stay calm, because if you freak out, they freak out. But you want to respect their boundaries, help them identify other people that they can also confide in. If they don't want to talk to you, maybe there's somebody at school, a counselor, another family member that you can help with. And then just be kind to yourself. It's okay to have strong emotions, but obviously try to remain calm as best as you can. Don't frighten them. Listen attentively and stay calm. Tell them it's not their fault. answer their questions, and just get some help if you need help. So what should they do if they start experiencing these things? Turn it off. That's the easiest thing to do. Turn it off, back out of the screen, tell somebody about it, report it to the app or the website, and then you can also obviously report stuff to the cyber tip hotline. Good. But together we can help with privacy settings, blocking inappropriate materials, and if you find different things that are inappropriate, by all means block it. So the inappropriate content, it can be illegal or inappropriate behavior, it can be offensive language, threats of violence, underage drinking or use, hate speech, different things like that. We see a lot of this. So what should you be putting online? Well, pictures of family or friends, personal information, conversation with unknown people in an online game. That's a huge problem right now with the online gaming. Many of your predators are using that as a platform to get into the home, okay? Creating videos and streaming services, checking in. How many of you check in? Hey, I'm at this event today, right? And that's okay most of the time, but whenever you're doing that, you're sharing your location, right? And then sending viewing of explicit or provocative photos and videos. Next slide. So the personal information side of it can be a lot of different things. Your passwords, your home address, the location we just talked about, your cell numbers, email addresses, things of that nature. Next slide. So those risks of sharing information online things are great because it helps you connect with people that maybe you don't get a chance to see very often or connect with, or people from your past, past employers, classmates, things of that nature. But there's a risk with that. And it goes all around, and we'll just go around the board here. Cyberbullying, online enticement, sextortion, hacking. We've all seen the things about our personal information, personal data getting hacked, right? From banks to Equifax, credit reporting companies, insurance, all that. Go back. Stalking, identity theft, and of course online scams, because that's how the bad guys get to your pocketbook. Next one. So what can you do? You can establish rules about what you should or shouldn't be sharing, learn about your reporting options, setting different privacy settings on your devices, creating strong passwords, and I know we're all guilty of using the same password. I'm there with you. So I'm just conveying the information, okay? Talk about the friends list, who these people really are, and then just creating a safety plan, what they should or shouldn't be doing. So online enticement, this is where I would offer to you, this is kind of what I would say is a little bit of a twist on trafficking, quite frankly. This is a new, not new, but a newer avenue for which trafficking can occur, not always, but can. So online enticement involves an individual communicating with someone they believe to be a child via the internet with the intent to commit a sex offense or abduction, and includes sextortion, just like our previous speaker talked about. Next slide. So how do these solicitations occur? Well, most of the time they're online, of course, and they occur with older teens, and they're most of the time solicited by their peers. And most are not bothered by it at all because they have been grown up with these devices in their hands. Next slide, please. But this is part of their grooming techniques. Okay, this is where this starts happening. They will exploit that natural curiosity. They will introduce sexually explicit images, and many times it doesn't take but just a few interactions before the picture of the private parts come through, okay? Happens very quickly, and I'm sure he could attest to that based on some of those types of undercover things they've been doing. Using an adult status to control their behavior, that starts that manipulation thing. And then they're going to give them gifts like phones and gift cards, things that teens or young people might want or maybe don't have access to. Next slide. And this grooming, they'll do that to flatter them, send them gifts. They will start down that hole of discussing inappropriate adult subject matters like sex. They will ask them to keep secrets. So this is very consistent with what you see with child molesting, things like that. They will turn them against their family and friends. Again, people are very busy nowadays, and many times when you get home from work, you've been working hard, you just want to eat dinner, maybe have a drink, and just not do anything, right? Well, somebody's got to watch the store, because if no one's watching the store, they are. They will fill that void in a heartbeat. They will share or ask for revealing images. This is how it starts. And then they will blackmail them to ask them for more. And then they'll want to meet face to face. Next one, please. So that's signs of grooming. If you're seeing calls from unknown numbers, maybe they're receiving gifts and they're like, well, where do you get this? And they'll say, oh, this friend that I met online. Maybe when you walk in the room, they minimize that screen and do some different things. They get very upset when they can't get their devices. If you want to watch a teenager or a young person lose their mind, grab their phone and just walk away with it. It's almost like they can't breathe at that point, right? And then they'll start rejecting their family and friends. Next slide. So what can you do? Talk to your children about the relationships. It's all about communication. Set up a policy about meeting people or older people online, and if they're going to meet them in person, discuss what you should or shouldn't be doing. Know who their friends are as best you can. Teach them the warning signs. Call police if you have an issue, and of course you can report to the cybertip.org. Next slide. So kids are very capable of this as well. So as you can see in this slide here, this person, again, very quick interaction, wanted to show them some pictures. The kid even made a report. So kids know how to do this probably better than most adults do, right? Next slide. So anyone who sends her child photos or videos containing obscene content, that could be child pornography depending on the age. Anyone who asks your child to send them sexual images, speak with your child in a sexual manner, or anyone who asks to meet your child in person. Again, this is an opportunity for them to try to start doing these things. So this was where sexting comes in. So the Indiana General Assembly had to deal with this because young people were sending each other pictures of their private parts, right? When they were doing that, they were committing felonies called possession and manufacturing of child pornography. So because it became such a problem, the General Assembly had to make some adjustments to the statute so that we didn't have a bunch of teenagers getting charged with felonies for child pornography and becoming registered sex offenders and all that kind of stuff. So it's basically posting nude or partially nude photos, and the research suggests that 19.3% of teens have sexted. Okay, and I would offer to you it's probably higher than that, honestly. And 34.8% of teens say they have received a sext. Okay, so that's a text message with sexually explicit material. Next slide. So why are they sexting? Well, there's younger people in here, there's some older people in here, but it all still applies regardless of your age. Sometimes they think it's funny, they want to impress somebody. There may be some peer pressure. There's a lot of peer pressure in today's world, right? To appear maybe what you're not. They want to experiment with relationships. They want to explore maybe sexual behavior and boundaries and things of that nature. Next slide, please. But there's a lot of consequences to it, and that's why the General Assembly had to step in and intervene a little bit to help not make it such a catastrophic decision by these young folks. Because there's humiliation involved, and then there's bullying that happens with it, and then blackmail. That's where the rubber really meets the road on a lot of this stuff. But it can also result in school discipline or police involvement. And one of the things I tell people when I talk at young people at schools and things like that is I talk to them about whatever you post, would you want your grandparents to see it on the 6 o'clock news? Okay, because once it's online, it's there forever, right? And you can't bring it back. And I'm here to tell you, there's a lot of young people who are seeing the results of their behaviors earlier on when they're trying to get jobs, and these companies are doing these research, and they find some of this stuff, and they don't want them as part of their company for a stupid decision they made years ago, right, and posted something. So just think about that. So start these conversations early. You can give some real life examples. Discuss what a healthy sexual relationship looks like. Talk about ways an image can spread online, which, again, once it's on forever, basically, right? And talk about the resharing and, of course, reporting it if you see something wrong. Next slide. So after you receive that sex message, then all of a sudden maybe sextortion starts. And this is where it spirals out of control for young people, or even adults for that matter. We see this sometimes too. It's a form of child sex exploitation where the children are threatened or blackmailed, most often with the assumption that this is going to be posted at school or online or for their friends and family to see, things like that. This crime can happen when a child has shared that image with somebody else, and then it gets shared and shared and shared over and over again. Next slide. So here's an example of how quickly this will happen. Now picture yourself being a young person getting this, and you're freaking out right now, right? And if you don't do this, here's what's going to happen. And it happens just that fast. Next slide, please. So don't comply with those demands. It's very much a normal response to want to do that because you think it's going to stop it, but it won't, because it'll just continue to get worse and worse and worse until they get you to start doing really egregious things that you don't want to do. Report it to the app. Do not delete the account because then it may help law enforcement if it gets to that point. And you can visit these different sites as well to help with that. Next slide. So bullying plus technology equals cyberbullying. Go ahead. So there's some different examples that we just talked about here. Sending mean text, photoshopping, and I would add in here the proliferation of artificial intelligence now that we're seeing a lot of. There's a lot of conversation with that. We're seeing a lot of that kind of stuff now. Fake profiles, posting fight videos, rumors, on and on and on. Next slide. So the differences between cyberbullying and bullying is this follows the kid home. The bullying, if it's happening, it's just at school, but the cyber part of it, it's with them all the time because they have their devices with them all the time. It spreads so much faster and the audience is much bigger. It's not just a classroom of kids, it's all over the world, right, potentially. And it can cause all these different issues. And I think if you know any young people, hell, even adults probably suffer from some of this kind of stuff from time to time, right? Depression, inability to think clearly. I don't know if that's just me or just old age catching up with me here. Anxiety, loneliness, self-esteem, things like that, right? Next slide, please. So they might stop using their computer or cell phone. They may act really nervous when they start getting these messages, things like that. They may seem uneasy about wanting to go to school and, of course, withdrawing from family or friends. Next slide. So you got the cyberbully, you got the victim, you got a person being a bystander, and then the most important one here is the one in the right corner here, the upstander. Next slide. So what can you do? You can support your child in problem and try and solve it together. Consider saving the evidence, block the cyberbullies, set up new accounts. Perhaps if it involves a school, talk to them, see if they can help with that, and of course report it on the cybertip.org. Some different behaviors that they may exhibit would be switching screens quickly, using a computer at all hours of the day and night, getting unusually upset if they can't use it, avoiding discussions about what they're doing, and of course multiple accounts. Next slide. So monitor and intervene if your child's online behavior, if you would do this, would you do the same offline behavior as we talked about earlier, right? Set consequences for that and model good online behavior yourself because, whether you like it or not, your young people model what they see, right? So talk about being someone that's upstanding, right? Being an upstander. Establish expectations for reporting. Encourage them to stand up for people who might be getting victimized by this. Help them report it to the teacher or adult and talk to the child about not being the person to forward and perpetuate the problem. Next slide. And you can see that for yourself. Just installing different tech options to help you with these types of things. We'll move on to the next slide. Connect, learn, and engage basically is the most important thing. And these are some different resources, and I believe I sent this to Mr. Reynolds. If you guys want to distribute this, you're certainly welcome to, because I know I went through these really fast. And these are free services from the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. And that's it. That's my show.